Welcome back to the Mega Man-like miniseries. At this point in the series, I'm just going to do some random things that you might encounter in any kind of a game. This isn't going to be necessarily Mega Man-like anymore, but today we're going to go over a score counter system. So we're going to add a score to our HUD, and then an enemy, when you kill it, will add a score. And so with that said, let's get started. All right, so here we are in the project. We're going to spend a lot of time in the menu scene today. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a score up here on the top left corner. It's going to keep track of a variable that is going to be increasing as a score is added. So first thing what we're going to do is we're going to go and we're going to create that variable. So we're going to add a variable here and we're going to call it current score. And I'm going to say that default equals 0 so that I know what to set it at when it comes time to build if I ever change this for some reason. And then we're going to go to objects here and add an object, and we're just going to call this the scorekeeper. And we'll call this basically HUD scorekeep. We do not want to give it an animation. Now, you might want an animation if you're going to display the text of score as an image, which might be more what you want. You're going to set it to neutral and delete all these things. And right away, go into movement and jump and go 0 gravity. There we go. All right, so now we have this. And what we're going to use to show the score is we're going to use the runtime action called show text. Now, show text, we're going to use two different ways today. We're going to use the text resource, and we're also going to use a variable version. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a text resource. Now, if you don't have any text resource here, you can click on a new one here, and it's going to pop up this window for you to say what you want your text to be. So I'm just going to say score. And then you have to select a font size. So in this case, I'm going to use 8x8. And the reason why is this is a really low resolution game. So we're just going to use this. And then character spacing, I'm just going to say 0, 0. And this gives you an example of what it's going to look like right here. And that looks good to me. So I'm going to hit OK. And then we're going to hit OK on this as well. And the reason why we just want to hit OK real quick, because now we can go to resources, we go to the text sub tab, and we can see that the text resource was created. And the cool thing about if you just add a new one like that is that whatever you type in here is also going to be the name. So it's not like you have to come back and rename it necessarily. It will be all ready to go. So adding text is actually as easy as that. Clicking new, adding the text, and then adding the font, and boom, your resource is created. So you don't have to spend hours inside the resource tab creating all these texts, unless that's something that you want to do. All right, so now that we have this text here, let's go through these other settings. So the one thing is that we want this score to be displayed forever while the HUD is being played. So we want to do no time limit. And then the other thing is that we want to make sure that the area display is large enough for the text to be displayed. In this case, 256 by 256 is plenty. We could actually even reduce this further. Another trick is that you can actually make this the size of the resolution of your game. If my keyboard will work here. There we go. And 180. And then this will give you more of a, you could then place this object center on the scene and you could work with it from there. But I'm just going to stick with, we'll see how this works out. 100 by 100. We'll probably have to adjust this, but we'll start with 100 by 100. Now here in the display area background, you can select to have some pre-made backgrounds, or you can select to have blank, or you can actually choose to have an image here. And when you pull up the image, it's going to show you the image size. So you'll know about what area this text will be on. Okay, so we're not going to do that. We're just going to click none. We don't want it. We just want it to be just the words, no background. And then here you can adjust the opacity. Now text margin is going to be how much in from the top and the bottom it is. I'm just going to zero these out. That way I can just have a true 0, 0 on it. And then also with some text like this, I like to center on here. Sometimes I like top left, but this time I'm going to choose center, center. And then we're going to center this. We'll just center it based off the object, but you have a few other things. This one is also a really useful one. Use the scene as the base, but I'm just going to use center of this object for this. Now we have some options down here that are very important for displaying these things. I might have a few actions on this object, and so how I want to control the text is I want to control it by when it goes into another action, I will have control whether it displays or not. So I'm going to choose hide on object action change, and then that's going to allow me to do that. That's going to allow me to basically, if I have another action right here, and if I have a link right here, and let's just say that it goes there unconditionally, then if I did not have this runtime in this new action, so here's where it's showing the text, and then it goes into this action. With this option selected, hide on object action change, it's going to hide the text. That's the only way to really hide it. Now, if I wanted it to continue the text, even if it moved to this action, then all I would simply do is copy and paste this into this new action, and then there will be no blip. There will be no like, it won't disappear at all. It will be like it just streamlined right into that new action. And then this way, the reason why I like this option is because I can dictate when and when it doesn't show. Basically, every action that I want it in, I put it in. Every action that I don't want it in, I just remove it. And maybe we'll show an example of that later. But for now, with the score system, we really only need it just displaying. That's really it. Okay, so we have the text to display. We're not going to hide it. We don't need any kind of input. This is like if you want to press a button to not show it anymore. We do not need that. And we don't need to stop or pause the game. And on positioning for the menu, we really don't need to do this. I'm pretty sure we don't need to mess with the position. All right, so I'm going to hit OK on this, and we're just going to say show the text. We're going to go to our scenes, the menu here. We're going to grab that object, the score HUD keeper, and we're just going to place it right here and just see where that works. This is going to be the center of the object because we have a blank object, so it's always the top left by default. And so we're just going to see where this works. So when I hit play, we'll see that we have the score right there. And so we were going to have the score coming out a long way. So we actually want to bring it a little bit in. Let's look at this one. And score is about right there. Kind of want it a little more level with the life. So I'm just going to bring it up just a couple pixels. And maybe one more. And you would definitely want a different font. This one doesn't really match the game too well, but that looks fine right there. So, all right, so there's our text for the score. Now we're going to add the score numbers. In the same action here, we're going to add a show text here, but this time we're going to do a variable. And so this is going to show a variable value. It can show as much of it as you want, and it's going to constantly keep it updated. And that's where this is really useful. So we're going to go to the common action, or the common list here, and we're going to grab the current score, and we're going to show it in the 8x8 font. We're going to set how many digits that we want. So in this game, I think if we did 6 digits, that would be nice. And we're going to add the zeros. So we're going to show the zeros. We also want to hide the decimals. So this will show, I believe, 2 decimal points by default. So definitely click that if you do not want to show that. Now we do not want the time, so we can remove that. We're going to give it actually, I'm just going to keep it the same. And then we're going to say no background. We'll zero this out as well. Center. We will center this object. However, well, I'll just show you what this is going to do. So then we're going to also hide on object action change, but we're going to select nothing else. So let's just see what happens right here when we're showing the score, and now we're showing the variable. And we'll see that they are overlapping each other. So now we just need to shift this number to the left a little bit, or to the right. And so we're simply going to do that by using the X. And so I'm just thinking based on tiles, how many tiles I would want to move that. So since we're 16 by 16, I'm thinking 48. Let's try 48. So and it's positive 48, that shifts it right. Negative 48 would shift it left. And so there we go. That actually looks pretty good. I would probably shift it. Let's see here. Let's go 64. And that might be a little better. Maybe come in, even just go 60. And we'll see how that looks. That might just look center. A lot of this positioning stuff would be purely based off your game. That looks fine. So I'll just keep it like this. Now, I do want to show you that in the display and parent-child relationship, you can also do the same thing right here. Show text variable on the object. And you can actually show a text and you can show a variable. Now, I don't like to use a system because it hard sets it, meaning that you cannot hide them at all. And so they will always be with the character. So I like this method. I like to use the show text and the show text variable method because at least I know that if I want to ever hide these but keep this object on the screen, all I got to do is provide another action, and I just have to make sure that the hide on object action change is selected. And so I feel that it's a more flexible design to use the show text versus the display child relationships. All right, so that is how we show him. Now let's go back to our enemy here, and let's see, how much life does he have? He has just 1 life. That's perfect. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to create another action. This is going to be just called wait for death, and this one will just be called death. And we'll just not set it. The add link is going to be if the HP is equal to 0, and it's going to be this object self. And so if it's equal to 0, we are going to, well, and this one we can do, yeah, we can do death here. And so there's a couple different ways that we could do this. We could actually just say, hey, we want to up the score. So the current score, we want to plus equals, which means add. And then we'll just say let's just say that these guys are worth 50 points. All right. And then we will destroy them. And whenever we destroy an object, unless you want it to come back on the scene change, you would press none, and that would make sure that it doesn't spawn again. In this case, we probably would want the enemies to come back on scene change, so I'm just going to leave it like that. And now we can go to our scene. We can go to the scene right here. And if I put him down here, and then put some of these enemies out here, just a couple of them. All right. And we'll see if this is all set up. I can't remember. Okay. No, it's not set up. All right, so we got to make sure that these guys, these enemies, have a collision detection, which they don't. So that was the problem there. So we're going to real quick add a collision detection. This is what the red boxes can hit. So the red box right here, that's why I got hit when I slid into him. But the blue box right here, this is what the bullets will hit. All right, so now let's see if that's enough. Nope. So the next thing we got to do is make sure that our weapon or our bullet, go to object settings here, and yep, it does not have an attack detection. So we're going to add the enemy group. We want it to hit the enemy groups. And this is nice because the attack detections are just one-way setups. So you only say on the attacking object what they hit. So it's very convenient. We'll say okay. And these are nice. This is actually nice that we're working through this because now we know what we need to do. Okay, so it's still not hitting. So I'm just going to make sure so the next thing that I'm thinking is that, well, maybe I don't have an attack detection on this bullet. So let's go to our basic, and sure enough, no attack detection. So we're going to add a keyframe here and just real quickly do something like this. And then I'm going to copy because we have to make sure we get it in each direction. And here's the charge shot. So while we're here, I'll just make a little bigger box here, and this will be for the charge shot. I just got to make sure that I do it on the other direction. Okay, so now this should all work. Okay, there we go. And we can see that each one added 150. One more thing I wanted to add, I didn't want the bullet to just fly through the enemies. I wanted the bullet to destroy when it hits an enemy. And so that's going to be done inside the bullet in the link here. We're going to add another link. We're going to say contact with collision from another object. We're going to set all, so either sides. And we're just going to say of the enemy group. And this will let us, if it hits any kind of an enemy, it will destroy. And so we'll hit OK. And then we're just going to click on or, because it can be going off the camera, or contact with a collision group. And I just wanted to show this off to show you that. Oops. There you go. So now you have to attack multiple times. All right, so that is one way to do it. This is basically the hard set method, and I don't know. You can do this, but now if you ever changed anything, you'll have to go through each enemy and do it all over again. So what we could do is this. I'm just going to skip this, and it's going to skip this runtime action, and we're going to actually create an object called, it's going to be a generated object, and it's going to be called add score. It's going to be none because we don't care about any detections or anything. And so I'm going to remove the detections. And we're just going to say that this is going to be a plus 50. All right. And we're also going to just say, we don't really need to remove gravity, but I just will, just so I'm in the habit. And we also want to make sure that the restore condition is none, because we definitely do not want this to make its way on the scene again when we come back in. Otherwise, you'll get many points. All right, so here's this one. And so plus 50. And we're going to, well, we're just going to leave it right here for right now. And in our enemy here, in the death, instead of changing the switch directly, we're actually just going to generate the add score method right here. And since we know that this guy is a 50, we're going to select the 50 object action. And it doesn't matter, any of this doesn't really matter, because we're just going to generate it and then destroy this object. And so then we're going to come to generate object, and we're going to say that the variable common score is going to plus equal 50. All right, so now, oh, and then the last thing that we need to do is make sure that it destroys. Destroy object, and we'll say OK. So now we have the logic all set up here. I'm going to delete this last one so we can see that this will work just all by itself. And we're going to hit A, and we're going to see that it all added correctly. But this time they were generating an object that changed it. So now what we could do actually, so instead of creating another enemy, which I'd have to add a resource and all this stuff, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click changeable on scene after placement. Okay. And then I'm going to go into this gen score here, and I'm going to add another one called plus 100. And this is going to add 100. And then I'm going to do one called plus 1000. And this is going to add 1000. All right. So now I have these different branches right here. And since in the enemy, I made this changeable even after placement on scene, now I can go to the scenes here and I can click on one of these and I can actually dictate which one it's going to generate. So this guy is going to be plus 50. This guy is going to be plus 100. And then this guy is going to be plus 1000. So if we play this right here and I press A, you can see that the number went up 50, 100, so 150, and then 1000. So now we have a grand total of 1150. All right. So generally you wouldn't need this, but I just wanted to show you that this is what it could look like when you have multiple setups like this. Okay, so now the last thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that the score here, oh no, not this one, the score keeper is capping when you reach a certain amount. And so that amount was I think it was 6 zeros. So the max you could get is 6 nines basically. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have another link right here, and this is going to be called cap or cap score. There we go. Yeah, and the link is going to be if the if this common current score is greater than 999,999. Okay, that's the max score that we can get in the game. If that is the case, what we're going to do is we're going to just recap the current score at 999,999. And then we're going to add a link back unconditionally that will just go back to the score text. So now whenever this score is trying to go too high, it's going to then come to here and it's going to cap it real quick, and then it's going to go back. Now, so let's just try this. Let's go back to the enemy here. And let's say that, oh, I guess we go on the scene for these ones. Let's say that this first one actually adds, oh, I gotta go to the add score right here. Let's say that instead of plus 50, it's gonna plus 999,999. All right, so the first enemy that gets hit is going to cap it right away, and then these next enemies are just going to recap it. So we're going to hit A, and you'll see that it just stayed. Nothing reset, nothing happened because it was constantly capping. And now I can actually show you what it will look like in the HUD Keeper if we do not show these texts again. So I'm going to skip these, so we will not show the text. And you're going to see now that when the first one's going to work fine because it's technically not going to be over, but once it hits the second one and third one, it's going to blip. These scores are going to blip. So I'm going to attack, and you can see them blipping. If you didn't see that, just pay attention right here. And you can see that it blinked a couple times. And the reason why is because I wasn't showing the text. But when I uncheck these, they did not blip. Everything was just streamlined and smooth. So that's why I like, again, this option, hide on object action change, and then I control where I want these texts to be shown to where I want them to flow well and where I want them to disappear. And I think that is it for this video. I think we did a lot. We showed just a bunch of different ways to do this and a few other things to add to your toolbox. And so if you got any questions, drop comments below. Discord, Steam forums will get you figured out. And with that said, we'll see you at the next video.